This is the flexagon, and to do this, it's this thing here. So I have my cards cut out. They should be exactly the same size. And I'm going to find the center point on all the sides. I've already gone ahead and measured them, but what you want to do is you just, find your center point, make a pencil mark on the vertical, and I'm also going to find the center point here on the horizontal. And I'm going to do that for both cards, the king card and the queen card. So now I have a center mark on the tops and a center mark on the side. And we're going to just go ahead and start with the queen for no particular reason, but let me zoom in a little bit here. And so I have my pencil mark here. The first part I'm going to do is I'm going to actually fold this to that center line. And I want to fold it so that there's just a hairline. I'm going to fold on the outside of that pencil mark on both sides. So I'm going to fold up to this pencil mark and bone it down. And then on the other side, I'm going to fold it up to that pencil mark on the other side and bone down. And so what you have is you have just this hairline seam right in the center. Okay. So once it's folded, it's gonna be folded like that. And now the king, we're gonna fold it the exact opposite way. So we're gonna fold in the sides to the vertical center. But it's the same idea. I'm gonna fold in the side to the outside of that pencil mark. Bone that down, and then fold in the opposite side to the other side of that pencil mark. And I'm leaving just a hairline seam in the center. So they're essentially folded like this. Now we're going to cut them in the opposite direction that they are folded. So this is a good job for your trusty little triangle. Got my triangle, I got my blade. You want to use a sharp blade. So because the queen is folded horizontally, I'm going to cut her in half vertically. So I'm going to use my triangle just to make sure that that's real straight. It's important that they are square. So I'm going to cut that in half vertically. And now the king, same thing, I'm going to cut it in half the opposite way of how it's folded. So it's folded vertically, which means I want to cut it in half on the horizontal. So I'm going to use my ruler to make sure that that's square. Have my little triangle here. And slice them in half. Okay, so this is the sample. I just want to show how this thing is glued together. In order for this to open and be right side up, they're actually glued back to back like this. So the king is inverted. And that allows it, because these two sides are flipping out. Now the king is right side up. So, but I'm just going to copy that placement. And this is, it feels counterintuitive, so you just have to kind of do it. But basically I'm going to put both kings' heads together. And I'm just putting, and then I'm going to, when you're gluing stuff, I always flip on the vertical, or no, is that the horizontal? Vertical. But I'm going to just flip this over in the exact placement that I actually want it glued. So this and this. So I'm going to take both pieces of the queen and flip them over at the same time so we can, these two things will be glued together in that way. And I'm just putting a dot of glue on the 4 outer corners. I'm just thinking of this as one whole piece still. Okay, and this is a good job for if you have a weight. I still want to keep that, you know, hairline seam. But you can use a weight or a bone folder or something just to kind of pin that bottom part down just so you can have your hands free. Now I'm going to put some glue on the right on my X's, but you can see here I'm just putting a little dollop of glue. I'm not gluing out the whole part. Just a glue dot there and a dot there. Now without flipping anything, I'm going to just scoot my king right on top. And I'm lining it up on the top flush. Now I'm going to bone this down. And if there's a little bit of overhang, we can trim that later. That's not a big deal. But I do want this top part to be flush. Okay. And again, we're gluing head to head. So now that those are glued, I'm going to move my weight to the top. Add more glue to these two X's. And scoot my king over. And I still want to leave just a hairline. I don't want anything overlapping on this king because they won't open. So if there's some overhang here, that's totally fine. We can trim that. But it's more important that there's just the slightest hairline gap between these two kings. Okay, and I'm going to bone that down. I don't want to fuss with anything yet because it's wet glue. But I do know that I have a little overhang here because I can see the pink. So I'm just going to trim that off. And if there's anything on the other side, like this is the time to kind of trim that excess or wherever they're not lining up so that they're exactly the same size. Okay, so our kings are glued inverted like that. If we flip it this way, our queen is whole. That should be dry enough. We're going to try it out. If you open up the queen that way, and then fold it the top and bottom out. So you have a little cross. And now, ta-da! And if it's snagging at all or catching, you're just going to want to trim that back a little bit so that there's nothing overlapping.